and thanks to all of you for being here. When I first heard of the theme for this year's colloquium, roads, it instantly made me think of the appeal of the open road and how it has been historically constructed and represented in popular culture, and how it is perhaps not uniquely American, but certainly quintessentially American. The open road does not speak to individuals growing up in Osaka or Munich in the same way. Europeans or Asians make some good cars, but they like to travel by train. Americans don't. Or perhaps Americans just won't. The only other countries with similar traditions are perhaps Canada and Australia, countries with similar vast spaces that are explorable by individuals in the 19th century, perhaps on horseback, in the 20th and 21st by motorcycle or car. I tend to believe that the romance and the glamour of the open road and the musical form of rock and roll are pretty much perfect for each other. Rock music is an American invention, originally an African American invention, but very quickly co-opted in a white American musical form, performed primarily by white males with expressions of traditional masculinity, usually, and certainly an affinity for the image of the outlaw, which is an important aspect of American culture. If we think about the outlaw, a great part of the appeal of the outlaw is simply self-evident. He exists, at least partially, outside the law. And he's not subject to the same daily constraints that we are. He is, well, more free. And his freedom is wrapped up in the capacity for independent movement, to be able to go where you want, when you want. That's a very compelling idea. I am tempted to keep the car dry and leave it all behind. And who among us has not felt that kind of temptation? Quit all the hassles and responsibilities and bills and crap of daily life and just go somewhere. Anywhere, really. It's a big country. Hell yes, we're going to have a good time. The Roadhouse has its own kind of mythology out there. There's a bar in the middle of nowhere where you might meet, well, anyone. Maybe even the ghosts of Jim Morrison and Patrick Swayze having a beer. You may ask yourself, what is that beautiful house? You may ask yourself, where does that highway go to? What I really appreciate about rock and roll is its ability to express this restlessness, this feeling that it's just time to go somewhere. Where is Isaac Brock of Modest Mouse going? Doesn't matter. His list is random. Colorado, New York, Arizona, Alaska, it's all good. Jackson Browne has no idea where he's going either. And he's apparently low on gas. But at least the weed hasn't run out, so again, it's all good. And of course, when you're out on the road, it should be less difficult to avoid the authorities. It's harder to hit a moving target, after all. Which brings us to another element of the open road's appeal, being able to break the law. I was, well, of course, we don't mean murder. Not usually, anyway. Maybe a little robbery. But really, it's all about being reckless and living to tell the tale. The open road is a great place for drugs and alcohol, and it's consistently glamorized in popular culture. I was about 16, I think, when I first read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson, who was a journalist for Rolling Stone magazine. The book is subtitled, A Savage Journey to the Heart of the American Dream. How do you find the American dream? It's rather elusive. Well, according to popular culture, especially this book, you don't find it by studying American history. Not by reading the great American novel, no. The American dream is elusive and you must get out of the house and go look for it. It's out there, somewhere, maybe even on the open road itself. And you're not going to find it encumbered by such complications as a wife and kids, no. In National Lampoon's Vacation, Chevy Chase's character clearly loves his family, wants them to have a good trip. But he can't help being tempted by the hot young chick in the Ferrari. Which brings us to an absolutely crucial aspect of rock and roll in the open road, women. Women are good, but they have a very limited shelf life. Marriage is not glamorous. Mutually fulfilling, long-term monogamous relationships have no place on the open road. The road is a great place for sex and even romance, but never for settling down. It's a variation perhaps on the Peter Pan syndrome or possibly even an early midlife crisis. I like to call it the Freebird syndrome. And I'm not playing Lynyrd Skynyrd, I don't like this song. What's a guy to do with all these pesky women? It's very stressful. You gotta take it easy. It's just too much of a hassle to deal with them all. Best to hit the open road, maybe find one who's a little less demanding.
Spend my days with a woman I can't smoke my still and drink on my mind. Made up my mind, make a new start. Going to California with an ATM in my heart.
You know, after a while, sometimes they're just leeches.
Name was Anne and I'll be damned if I recall her face. She left me not knowing what to do. Every highway let me slip away on you. Every highway we've seen better days. The morning after blue, from my head down to my shoes. Every highway let me slip away on you.
Had to sneak in a little Canadian songwriter in there, you know. Gord's done this before. So often he forgets the faces of these clinging women, but the highway is always there. Now, let's look at this from both sides of the male-female point of view. Both sides, the male and female point of view. First of all, the boss. These are actually quite amazing lyrics when you think about it. Iconic American rocker Bruce Springsteen has just abandoned his family without telling them, apparently on a whim. And he took the car too. Why? I don't know. He's restless. He's just got a hungry heart. That's the way it is. What about the other side?
Late last night, heard the screen door slam, and a big yellow taxi took away my old man. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone?
What they do to paradise? On the other side of the equation, the woman who is left has very little recourse. She's not going to go hit the road, open road, looking for casual sex. She's just left behind to ponder her loss. All right, well, we'll come back to gender. Let's look at ethnicity or race for a little while. What does it mean to think of historically the different types of movement that have occurred in white history? Well, you can think that Columbus discovered America, you can talk about the Mayflower, you can talk about manifest destiny and this constant movement of pushing back the frontier all the way to the last frontier of Alaska, perhaps even the final one of space. And in the 19th century, perhaps a horse or a train. In the 20th century, certainly out on the open road in a car. Hopefully, you know, a nice American muscle car, although nothing really beats a convertible. And in fact, we've gotten to the place where these vehicles are approaching the absurd. Vehicles within vehicles. Store your sports car in your enormous RV or your all-terrain vehicles, or perhaps tool around in what may be the most offensive vehicle ever produced by man, the Hummer limo. The road when you're Native American, historically, well, history of the last 400 years has been one of displacement, forced migration, and contraction of the space available in which one can move. Native American freedom exists in an inverse relationship to white freedom. Now, by the 1970s, the majority of Native Americans no longer lived on reservations and can at least partially partake of the same opportunities, but the historical and cultural resonance is much less compelling. Oh, sorry. Should note, we have those maps there indicate the contraction of land that was controlled by Native Americans. So in 1790, in 1850, 1880, and today. The road when you're black. Well, first there was that, and then there was this, and then 100 years of Jim Crow laws. So that even now it is comparatively much less safe to hit the open road if you are African American. What about if you're Hispanic? Well, Hispanics or Latinos are a very diverse population, but most non-Hispanic Americans think of Mexicans. Certainly there are other groups. The Cuban population is primarily in South Florida and Puerto Rican and large eastern cities. Both are relatively urban and sedentary. In the Southwest, however, the image from popular culture and from mass media is of desperate, dangerous, illegal aliens. Now, certainly there are illegal immigrants, and all through American history, the law enforcement agencies at the federal, state, and local level have often been granted extraordinary powers to stop and detain Hispanics. So the open road, if you're Hispanic in the Southwest, well, especially say in Arizona, it's just not a good idea. Asians, another extremely diverse group, are almost an exception to the trend here. Generally, historically speaking, they have been, again, relatively urban and sedentary. The internment camps that we see there on a map from World War II certainly were an episode of contraction of one's available space. But in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, many culturally assimilated Asians do participate in the open road mystique. In Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, two best friends, one Korean and one Indian, are purposefully resistant of their ethnic heritage. Instead, they embrace the idea of the open road in a very quintessentially American activity. If only within New Jersey, and if only in search of weed and tiny hamburgers. Hitchhiking has been glamorized in popular culture for a long time, but let's be honest, most of the time hitchhiking sucks. And it's dangerous no matter who you are, it's just a matter of degree. This is the image of female hitchhikers we've been fed in pop culture. It doesn't really exist. And would it be insanely dangerous to partake in? Let's wear our transparent high-heeled shoes on the highway. Right? We don't have a real strong tradition of women on the open road in popular culture. There's almost nothing in rock and roll, but it does exist. There's something there. Take Thelma and Louise, for example, a popular, very controversial movie about two female friends out for adventure on the open road. It doesn't take long for things to go wrong for them. Thelma, Gina Davis's character, is sexually assaulted outside the roadhouse, and Louise must kill to protect her. Even after that, there is, strangely enough, some fun to be had. Meeting a young Brad Pitt, who of course robs them, holding up a few gas stations themselves, locking a cop in the trunk of a car, things like that. But every negative thing that happens to them is caused by men. Eventually, they close in. The men the authorities. There's no more open road at the end. There's no more space for them. And we know what happens. The road when you're gay. Well, I don't know if anyone knows a movie by the name of Vanishing Point. There's a great documentary in which Tom Hanks describes his reaction to a scene here. Two men are hitchhiking by the side of the road. Our hero picks them up. And it becomes very clear very quickly once they're inside the car that they are gay. They are absolutely over the top, stereotypical. And one of them pulls out a gun to sort of, take over the car. Our hero simply smiles, and then we see a longer shot where the car swerves over to the side of the road, and somehow he tosses both of them out the open car doors. Why? Because they're gay. They can't possibly hurt you, even if there's two of them and they have a gun. Not a real man. So we've got a tradition of definite homophobia. We have a few interesting little exceptions. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, is a road trip for drag queens out in the outback of Australia. And they certainly meet some problems before they get to the relative civilization of a place like Melbourne or Sydney. There is a tradition of androgyny and at least a tolerance for homosexuality in rock and roll, although it does not translate well to the adventure of the open road. Here we see David Bowie, simulating fellatio with his guitarist Mick Ronson, the Smiths and their brilliant gay singer Morrissey had some vaguely homoerotic artwork of their album covers. In 1979, when the Village People sang Go West, they were essentially giving advice to the gay men of America. If you're gay, get the hell out of Owensboro, Kentucky, and get yourself out to the coast, preferably San Francisco. But there is no open road adventure implied by this. You should get there as quickly as possible so you'll be safe. The open road is no place to be gay. Pop culture has glamorized the idea of being a drifter, hitchhiking and living by your wits. Well, it's possible perhaps, but it's also quite ridiculous, especially long term. Having no money is probably the most dangerous condition of all on the open road. Sleeping outdoors makes you extremely vulnerable. It's common to sleep under bridges, if, of course, the government has not made it impossible by putting up spikes. We're all more than one thing. So let's take a musical case study of race, class, and gender together with the excellent American singer-songwriter Tracy Chapman. Look at this song called Fast Car. If you check out the lyrics, it's a rather sad and very realistic story of having very few choices in life, but at least having a boyfriend who's got a fast car and having some temporary relief because of that. She hopes to escape with him. She's been working at the convenience store, saved a little money, and then maybe they'll finally see what it means to be living if they just get out. But she's had to quit school to look after her alcoholic father. So they finally do leave, but he doesn't get a job. She's working as a checkout girl in the market, and they're working in the shelter. They're living in the shelter. Hopefully, they'll buy a big house and live in the suburbs, the most banal version of the American dream. But it doesn't work out. She's got a job that pays the bills, but he doesn't care about his kids that they've now got. She just wants him to leave, and he does. Throughout these verses, in this depressing tale, the choruses comparatively soar. The choruses represent the temporary relief of the road and having a fast car.
So remember when we were driving in your car, speed so fast, felt like I was drunk. City lights day out before us, your arm felt nice down around my shoulder, and I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling I could be someone, be someone, be someone.
She had that feeling once, but not anymore. Not by the end of the song. What options does she have? She's working class, almost poor, working poor, lacking formal education, black, a woman, and a single mother. The idea that she could hit the open road in search of romance and adventure is quite simply absurd. So, to whom is the open road really open? Well, I don't know how well you can see the words in red there, but if we look at race or ethnicity, social class, sex, sexual orientation, and age, we can see, using the traffic light symbols, we can see if you're white, middle class, male, heterosexual, and relatively young, the open road is for you. If you're working class, maybe. But you know, your car could break down, you could have to hitchhike, things like that. If you're upper class or rich, yeah, you could, but you probably won't. You know, and you know, taking your private jet if you're very rich, and if you're upper class, you might not even have the survival skills to have the kind of fun on the road that you want to have. In terms of age, yeah, you can be an adult, maybe even into middle age, but that's not really seemly. I'm thinking that the prime ages here are about mid-teens to mid-20s. Well, I don't think the ideology of the open road is evil. The appeal of the open road is really powerful. It's something that has spoken to me my entire life. I've always thought that I was really lucky to have been able to travel quite a bit in my life, especially in my 20s. I was in all those categories, every privileged category. So I seldom considered that luck, being lucky to have traveled, included my privileged position in terms like gender or race. Now, I'm an optimistic person, so I hope that as the 21st century progresses, so do we, and that the open road becomes progressively more open. Adventure, romance, freedom, and rock and roll. What more could you possibly want?